Hi, guys, and welcome back to another Impulsi Talk podcast. So, you haven't yet heard me. I'm Uliana. I come from Ukraine, and this time we had an idea to talk about the way media portrays each one of us.
Yes. Hi, this is Chi Chi, by the way. I was on the other podcast episode. So today we will expand on the different stereotypes embedded by and in society. As a person of color, tackling stereotypes is a challenge you will face from day one. Are you conforming to them as a way to assimilate, or are you actively trying to change them? And change the stereotypes by presenting yourself in a way that does not conform to your own stereotypes, specific culture, race, or gender.
Hi, this is Kate again. I was featured in the first two episodes. So obviously there are many stereotypes of different kinds of people portrayed in the media. I personally think that it's a rather huge shame that some writers choose to base characters on stereotypes instead of giving them their own unique traits and personality.
Okay, so you guys already know I come from Ukraine, and I've seen and read thousands of hurtful and absolute inaccurate things about my nation. And there have been uncountable stereotypes that I've seen throughout my life. And I can definitely say that the most hurtful one was that idea that all Ukrainians are uneducated. And honestly, it is not only false, but extra insulting, because we have a strong tradition of education and intellectual achievement. And literally any elderly person holds at least one higher education, if not multiple, like all of my grandparents.
I can definitely understand how you feel, 100%. Stereotypes are angering, especially when you're faced with the reality that a lot of people are extremely ignorant and know nothing else but said stereotype. As a Black Nigerian American, I don't even know where to begin on the topic of stereotypes, because there are so many, like whitewashed, ghetto, uneducated, poor. And with my own experiences, it's always just been it's pretty hindering to your ability to know and love yourself in a way. And when you're constantly being boxed into a specific stereotype, it's not the greatest way to grow up. And I know there have been multiple situations where my own education and my own intelligence has been undermined by the stereotypes that have been placed for Black people. And it's always angering to know that some people just are ignorant and don't know anything else but what the media portrays Black people as. And I can definitely agree with you on how it's just annoying and angering.
Yeah, I absolutely get what you mean. And the stereotype that probably hurts me most is not actually a stereotype, but like a portrayal of Ukrainians as either victims or aggressors, especially in the context of political conflicts. Well, Ukraine has indeed faced significant challenges, but reducing us to mere symbols of suffering or aggression, it really undermines and ignores the diversity and of our culture, and I guess the diverse experiences and perspectives within the country. And from our vibrant folk traditions to our contemporary art scene, our culture is rich and multi-faced, and it's rare to see this diversity reflected accurately in mainstream media.
That was really, really well said. I can definitely just see where your anger is. And I think it also kind of goes hand in hand with how Black people are portrayed as the aggressors. I think any context, really. If you're an opinionated Black woman, automatically you're deemed as loud and in any situation, whether it be political or not, the Black person is the first person of interest to the police. And obviously that's because Black people have been portrayed as criminals and, quote unquote gangbangers the longest time. Even when we hold peaceful protests, the police still take this as an act of aggression, and there are multiple examples of this that have happened in the past year or 2 years. Black people have always been the aggressors since the beginning of time. Like, there are so many like portrayals, as you said, of Black people. We were called savages. We were compared to gorillas. We've always been the quote-unquote aggressive species of people. And it's still very much a problem that I think, a lot of people don't see, that it does affect like the youth and like, today's generation. It hinders young people's abilities to go out and not live in fear that something will happen when they get or something will happen and they'll be the first person to get in trouble. We're not the aggressors. We are just tired of being tied down to stereotypes that are simply wrong. And I think I can even have my own experience. I can name so many experiences that even my brother has had, as a young Black man, being a teenager and just having a lot of white friends. He couldn't be the last one out late because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if a policeman is going to come and, be like looking for trouble.
So we get what you mean, and I've personally witnessed many racist situations all over the world. But of course, we need to like look for good in everything, and it's important to recognize the impact of the stereotypes, as you said, and probably not just on us as individuals, but on society and how it perceives each country, each culture. Well, when Ukrainians were just reduced to caricatures, it kind of undermines our contribution to global culture, and it alters the whole, understanding towards us. And going back to my school in Spain, everybody felt pity rather than compassion or understanding towards my situation, and I felt very out of place, and I didn't belong. And I feel like each one of us should be perceived as a human being at first, and we can break down those stereotypes and pretty much build like a more inclusive narrative. And we should really honor the true spirit of each country, culture, race. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for that, Chi and Liliana. It's honestly like so refreshing to get a perspective from you guys, like the way you guys are portrayed in the media, especially with all the misinformation going around. And there are a lot of harmful stereotypes associated with Southeast Asian individuals as well, which I wanted to talk about. For example, there's the agrarian stereotype, which often stereotypes us as coming from rural or like agrarian backgrounds, leading to assumptions that like we're less urbanized or technologically advanced, which like is not true. Or like the uncivilized or primitive stereotype, where we're viewed as a less developed or primitive, particularly in contrast to Western or East Asian cultures, which can definitely lead to more patronizing attitudes. But the one I really wanted to talk about is the stereotype of hypersexualization of Southeast Asian women. In media and popular culture, they're often portrayed as either submissive or overly sexualized, which is very harmful and reductive. So I did some research about this stereotype, and apparently it stems from the legacy of colonism and military presence in Western media representations. So basically in the Vietnam War, U.S. military bases would establish rest and recreation services in the countries they were stationed in. So that would be the Philippines, where I'm from, or Thailand and Vietnam. These services included local women being forced or coerced into sex work to cater to soldiers, which is honestly horrifying. Because of this, I suppose, like a lasting association of Southeast Asian women with prostitution and submissiveness began in the Western imagination. I mean, these harmful ideals, they dehumanize Southeast Asian women, and the notion that like they only exist for the pleasure of others, particularly Western men, is such a terrible and damaging mindset.
Exactly. I completely agree. And, especially with the fact that these are really, really harmful ideals, and they do dehumanize Southeast Asian women. And I think the history behind these stereotypes are absolutely terrible. And we need to bring light to these stereotypes. And honestly, like we've stated before, it starts conversations like these. It's upsetting to know that, we have to be the ones to do this and our schools won't do it, but, something has to be done to be able to let people know that like stereotypes like these still do exist and are extremely harmful to youth and to society as a whole.
Yes, exactly. And they're like in media, like it's handled so lightly or it's joked about, which is such like it's terrible because like people don't take it seriously, and I think we start to need to be taking it seriously, especially if the education system doesn't like cover these topics.
Exactly. I feel like there are too many jokes being made about stereotypes where it's like it gets to a point where it's not even gets to a point, it's just not funny anymore. And I feel like our schools, you said, they just fail to kind of teach us about how harmful these things can really be. And there are so like, even like you can watch a show, like any show, and there's probably going to be like a joke about race, and it's like, is it really funny? Because it's kind of harmful, to the teenagers that are watching that, and they're watching it and they're kind of, saying like, oh, is this okay to say? It's really not okay to say. And it's important that, we have conversations like these where we talk about, the stereotypes that each of our cultures have endured and kind of, I guess, bond over them in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, ironically, it's these stereotypes, like what you said, it's these stereotypes that can like help us like bond, I guess, over our collective, like, not really hatred, but like our collective speaking out on them.
Yeah.
So that's how we can learn more about our cultures, because we can, take these stereotypes and just throw them out the window and say like, oh, that's not me. Like, I have my own personality. My personality is not just my race.
No, yeah, I agree 100%. I think we are not defined by the stereotypes that, the media has played out for us. We are defined by ourselves, I don't really, yeah, I agree with you, yeah.
You know what? She just said something about watching series or movies and about stereotypes being included even there. And I just remembered watching like the first seasons of Emily in Paris, and it was such a disappointing experience for me because there was a Ukrainian woman and she was basically portrayed as a thief and someone who's just plain stupid. And I don't know, it honestly felt like a slap in the face to see my culture, being reduced to this stereotype, and, it couldn't be further from reality. And I don't know, I feel like this portrayal is probably just a careless mistake. I really want to believe that. But it really reinforces the whole idea that we are untrustworthy and we're just, less intelligent and stuff. And it just feeds into this stereotypes, and, they have real world consequences.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. I feel like every single show that I watch, the Black person in the show either has to have an accent, is from the South, is, quote unquote ghetto. It's like there's never really a show where there's a Black character that's the main focus and that's it. There's always some, backstory whether the mom left or the dad left or they came from a poor neighborhood. And I think obviously it's getting better. There have been many, many shows that, have portrayed, a Black lead character as, I guess, quote unquote normal, but it's still very much a problem in media. And I really thank you for saying that, because it, brings light to these things, because it's not to be taken lightly.
Well, yes, I have noticed that, like, Black characters always somehow, like, what you said, being from the ghetto, having one or two absent parents, and even if there are portrayals of, like black leads, what I've noticed is the media, like social media, just like hates them. I've noticed that with so many different forms of like, it could be like TV shows, movies, even plays, and like the media just like starts just hating on them for no reason.
I definitely agree. And it's refreshing, the fact that like I'm not the only one that's seeing it. Because of course, like it's a TV show, but when you grow up, you begin to notice like the patterns in these TV shows, and it's just annoying, you know?
You know what? I also remember the movie Looking for Alaska because, well, especially about black people, because it, like the way it portrays the character of Colonel, if any of you guys watched it, I don't know, it really looks racist because, again, his accent, the way, I don't know, just the way he thinks, the things he does, it all has to be criminal, and like the white characters don't do any of that, and he's the only one portrayed this way. I can definitely feel what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. I haven't seen that movie, but I can probably imagine like how they portrayed his character.
I think it's like very obvious when you're watching a piece of media, like you can tell when the writers and producers didn't actually want the characters to have their own personality and their own traits. I think they just based it off of like stereotypes and like what they've seen in other media. And I think that's like such a shame, right? Because like,
yeah,
as a writer, like your job is to, you know, like tell the story of those characters. So sucks.
Yeah, I can definitely agree. I think even with like being Nigerian, being African, now the portrayals of Africa in the media are just like wrong. Just like they're never accurate. It's always like this person goes to Africa and they're in huts and there's this and there's dirt on the floors and they're in the middle of the wilderness. But people forget that like Africa's a continent and there are cities in Africa. So, you know, those portrayals in the media are just like, it's just annoying to see how, but I agree, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And like we said, it does start with like conversations like these, you know, like with more youth speaking up on this stuff. I think we can just, you know, try our best to make a difference for the generations after us. And that's basically the whole goal of this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks to all of you guys for speaking out today and talking about such an important topic that is, for some reason, considered taboo in modern society. And it is crucial to understand that these stereotypes are altering society's perception of us. So thanks to everyone for listening, and you'll hear us very soon. Bye!